Hi, I'm Hillary Wynn, Custom Content Manager for Meister Media Worldwide, the publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. I'd like to welcome Dr. AJ Foster, Agronomy Technical Services Manager at ICL. AJ is going to answer some questions about the benefits of polysulfate in cotton production. But first, a little bit about AJ. With nearly 20 years of experience in teaching, research, and crop nutrition, he has worked across diverse cropping systems. Prior to joining ICL, AJ served as a University Extension agronomist and a research agronomist with Aromatic Inc. and Lamb Weston. He holds a master's degree in environmental soil chemistry, as well as in soils agronomy, and a PhD in crop science. AJ, welcome.
Thank you, Hillary. I'm very happy to be here.
AJ, how does polysulfate offer more benefits than just being a sulfur source for cotton, particularly in terms of providing potassium and magnesium to crops?
Well, in terms of sulfur source, and when we think of polysulfate, is the main reason it has four nutrients. So it has potassium, it has magnesium, calcium, and this is all in the sulfate form. And that's so predominantly we looked at it from a sulfur source because it has 19% sulfur. So sulfur is in the highest proportion. Then with that, it also has potassium, which is in 14%. And then it's calcium, which is 12%. And then it has magnesium, which is 3.6%. So in applying, it's a single crystal. So it's not a blend. And we do get that question a lot. It's not a blend, so it's a single crystal that contains these four nutrients. So even applied as a sulfur source, you still get potassium, magnesium, and calcium. And what's unique about poly is the release pattern. So if you create a blend, you can create a blend with the potassium sulfate, the magnesium sulfate, as well as the calcium sulfate. But what you won't get is the unique release pattern because all these nutrients are in one crystal lattice. So every single granule of polysulfate contain these four nutrients. So you can look at it different ways. If you are looking to you can apply it based on the sulfur. If you're looking for sulfur, that's the main nutrients you're interested in. If you're interested in potassium, you could apply it based on potassium. The disadvantage that is 14%. So you'd have to look at based on your soil test and how much potassium is needed. Can also be applied based on calcium. That's a little trickier, but but it does bring the calcium portion to it as well. So also the magnesium. So a lot of it can be applied based on either one of these four nutrients. But we typically go based on sulfur because sulfur, especially in the cotton growing areas in the southeastern United States, sulfur is often most deficient.
Can you explain how polysulfate can be used at lower application rates compared to KCl while still achieving significant yield improvements?
In terms of application rate and why we think it can go at a lower application rate, not typically for polysulfate, but it's based on a lot of the research that both we have done ourselves as well as research that's been done in the literature. So some of the research that's been done, especially in the literature, what it has shown is when applied polysulfate to soil, what they have found in leachate studies is an increase in the amount of potassium available in the leachate despite lower rates of potassium applied. So from that, what we're seeing is that the calcium and the mag being 2 plus is increasing the cation exchange. So it's exchanging and bringing more potassium into solution. So based on that, we have done research where we have reduced the MOP or potassium chloride rate when we add poly. And we have found that we can reduce MOP up to 50% when you got a soil test K of greater than 100 ppm. And that is because, again, the calcium and the mag portion are allowing for greater exchange of potassium and bringing more potassium into solution, increasing the availability of potassium for plant uptake.
How does polysulfate fit into a systems approach for crop nutrition? And can you share any insights on its compatibility with foliar or water-soluble fertilizers?
In terms of a system approach, we always see polysulfate as a base. And as I mentioned, you can apply it based on a potassium need or sulfur need in those instances as a base fertilizer. And then you could also, based on our research, you can use it in combination with foliar fertilizers. And we have used it in combination with our foliars NovaFlow as well as Nova Pulse. And the reason for that is when we look at it with our Nova Pulse, especially our Nova Flow. Flow is 5% nitrogen, 10% phosphorus, and 20% potassium. But it also contains magnesium, 9%, and 11% sulfur, and 0.5% boron. What makes Nova Flow very unique is that it contains magnesium and potassium. The magnesium and potassium is, we typically in soil are antagonistic for uptake, but in the plant, magnesium and potassium are very synergistic. So applying it foliarly, NovaFlow, you can take advantage of the synergy that exists with the magnesium and potassium. We also combine that with Nova Pulse. Nova Pulse is a 064, but what's unique about it, it contains cobalt. So cobalt helps to reduce ethylene production. So you apply it during flowering, and it helps the plant to hold more flowers. So a combination of the flow, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and potassium, and combined with the Nova Pulse, is kind of like allowing the plant to hold more buds or more flowers, and then feeding it with additional nutrients. So we combine that with polysulfate, and what we have seen is there is in years, and it's always the same with most foliar, not just NovaFlow and NovaPulse, but typically in years where there is high yield potential, the response is a lot higher to foliar. In years where yield potential is a lot lower, you'll see lower in terms of yield response. So we're seeing up to anything from 10 to 20% yield response from a combination of polysulfate with our foliar products.
What role does polysulfate play in improving soil health and sustainability compared to traditional fertilizers?
So in terms of soil health, what makes polysulfate pretty unique is that it contains calcium, and it contains a soluble form of calcium. So compared, if most growers are probably familiar with gypsum and the benefit of applying gypsum to improve in terms of soil structure. Polysulfate contains gypsum. It's just that it has 12% calcium. So it gives you the same benefit that you will gain from gypsum. The big advantage poly brings is that it's more soluble than gypsum. So in terms of it's about 10 times more soluble than gypsum, which allows you to apply a much lower rate and still get some of the same benefits that you see with gypsum, with calcium. So from a soil health standpoint, that free calcium and the benefit of calcium in terms of improving soil structure helps in aggregation. And then it has magnesium in it. So calcium and magnesium together are very important to help in the aggregation of that soil, and predominantly for air and water movement. So which is soil health is really improving the soil health is about improving air and water movement in that soil. And that's one advantage poly does bring to that soil health scenario, is it help the calcium and the mag to help aggregation and help the air and water movement in the soil.
Is there anything else our audience should know?
I think it's one of the things, and some of the works we're focused on is really the combination of polysulfate with MOP or potassium chloride. And the reason for that is potassium chloride brings that salt component, a high salt content, versus polysulfate that contains potassium, but it's in the sulfate form. So by reducing your MOP, you're bringing in a low salt forms of potassium. It allows you to diversify your potassium and reducing the salt impact. So what we have seen from our studies is not just improvement, if applied pre-plant, we're seeing improvement in emergence because you're reducing that salt impact that comes from the MOP. So there is a real big benefit to diversifying your case source in using a combination of MOP as well as polysulfate that brings the potassium sulfate. And typically most cotton growers, most farmers are well aware of the benefit of SOP, but for years it was out of reach because of cost. SOP is a lot more expensive, but polysulfate is probably a more affordable form of SOP that could be blended in with your MOP and allowing you to diversify your case source.
Where can more information about polysulfate and ICL be found?
More information you could always find on our website. It's ICL, growingsolution.com.
AJ, thanks again for taking the time to discuss how polysulfate can help cotton growers in achieving higher yields, improved fiber quality, and better resource efficiency.
Thank you so much, Hillary.